Hello, and you're very welcome to the JMAC podcast. I'm John Cavan. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgrex.com. Use the code JMAC podcast to get 15% off on the website. Coming near the end of the championship, so get your county jersey on orgrex.com. And today I'm joined by GAA Statsman Matthew Hurley to talk about this weekend's All-Ireland semi-finals and, of course, the Tottenham Cup final as well. So really looking forward to chatting to Matthew today. Not long to go, Matthew, but we're here today to talk about it. The summer's flying by. How are you?
Yeah, all good, John. Thanks for having me on again on the podcast here. Yeah, it's amazing. We were chatting off air there about 13 years ago today was the Leinster final. That incident with Joe Sheridan throwing the ball over the line and Mead robbing loud. And now we're at a time when All-Ireland finals and semi-finals are fixed for July. It's kind of a weird time, but I suppose it is, for the clubs for later on in the year and time to go clubbing, as Kieran McCarthy may say, down south here and up the country as well. I'd imagine the club championship is rare to go up in Ulster and Leinster and Connacht indeed as well. So, yeah, definitely. But GC All-Ireland, we have some decent enough games, I suppose. Like a lot of people are complaining about the quality of football. I'm sure you yourself were complaining about the quality of football over the last few weeks, and it's kind of come into question over it. And you look at the semi-finals this weekend, and it doesn't really whet the appetite as it did last year, in my opinion. Like you look at Dublin and Kerry last year, Derry, Galway, we were excited for those games, but this year we have the kind of a feeling that Kerry and Dublin will make it through. But all the same, I'll be delighted to discuss it in the podcast.
Yeah, I suppose obviously the quarterfinals did, take place last weekend. Match, I suppose, not the most inspiring games of football, to say the least, but we're here at the semi-final stage and we're at Tottenham Cup final stage, so really look forward to cracking into the action with you, Matthew. And I suppose a bit of housekeeping before we get the podcast started. Close to home for me, Mickey Graham last night stepped away from the Cavan senior football job after 5 years in being in charge. I suppose everything comes to a natural end, Matthew. I suppose obviously probably shouldn't be role reversal. You probably need to be asking me this question, but I wouldn't mind hearing your perspective when you heard Mickey Graham is stepping away from the Cavan senior setup.
Yeah, it was kind of a shock when the news came out first in general, but then when you think about it, he's been there since 2019. He's been up and down literally with Cavan, won an Ulster title, got to an Ulster final in his first year in 2019. Obviously went all the way down to Division 4, which, to be honest, Cavan were not a Division 4 team. And but in fairness, Mickey, he got them back up to Division 2 this season, and he did an excellent job there. I suppose they ran out of steam, as we mentioned off air there, in the championship, as many teams that were successful in the league did, in fairness. But I think he did a very good job at Cavan. And to be honest, in the last few years, I would say, you probably know more than me, John, but I'd say the top two Cavan managers in the last few years have probably been him and Terry Hyland, in my opinion. So it's a big loss for Cavan. It's going to be interesting to see who comes in. It's actually going to be interesting to see if Mickey Graham takes. I'm hearing on social media he could take the Donegal job. I don't know where I got it.
Yeah, you would know, yeah. A few tweets going about, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't believe everything you see on Twitter either.
Exactly. Jesus, you can't even see tweets anymore. It's gone to the dogs. You know?
Yeah, 600 limit, Matthew. Thank you, Musk. Thank you, Mr. Elon.
Yeah. Jeez, it's a bit of a waste of time now, isn't it? Jeez, it's a bit of a joke, but enough about Elon in this podcast. We're talking about Roy Tuberty next now, but
oh God, don't get me started. Oh God, yeah.
But
the 300 grand was only resting his account, Matthew. Don't worry.
Yeah,
it's Monday, Matthew, or it's Tuesday. Don't let our blood pressure rise. Tuesday's bad enough days it is.
Exactly, yeah, but geez, it's all we see online now. The Tuberty and Elon Musk, seriously, like so how could we discuss the likes of Mickey Graham stepping down, and maybe he stepped out at the right time, stepped down when all the news wasn't on him, and he went out in his own terms, maybe. I don't know, but in fairness, he did a good job at Cavan. I don't know what you think about that yourself, but I think an Ulster title, Ulster final, 2 Alliance League titles. I know it was Division 3 and Division 4, but in fairness to me, achieved those. But I think he did a very good job at Cavan, and it'll be interesting to see who comes in next year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose we were talking about it off air, and we were, I suppose, discussing it and letting Brent, and I suppose he did come in at the end of 2018, and then obviously got the ball properly rolling in 2019, and we were in, I suppose, a good kind of good positions. I suppose the relegations probably were a tough pill to swallow at the time when they did happen, I suppose Mickey was always known for being like a championship man and put so much emphasis into it, and maybe that kind of cost the price when it did kind of come to the league football. But there definitely, as I said on Twitter, there was great times, and when the county did need a serious lift, we even got, like, I suppose 2019 Ulster final, Donegal gave us a bit of a lesson that day, but even to get there and into that position, and then obviously win the Ulster Championship in 2020, the COVID year gave everyone a serious lift, a brilliant lift when it was badly needed, and then maybe you could nearly say after the 2020 success, 2021 was probably a tough year. I think it was Wicklow demoted us down to Division 4, kind of fell flat against Tyrone in the championship, memory serves me correctly, and then even in 2022 losing the Total Cup final, obviously getting out of Division 4, that was very important. And then I suppose this year, you know, it was obviously getting promoted, winning the Division 3 title against a good Fermanagh team. That was good. The Ulster game against Armagh was quite disappointing. I suppose, saying off air to you, maybe Mickey put a lot of emphasis into getting us back out of Division 3 and get us up again. And maybe Championship, we kind of fell a bit flat. And then I suppose the Total Cup quarter-final exit was probably a very hard pill to swallow for a lot of Cavan fans. And I suppose a lot of fans are probably very, very frustrated because they know Cavan actually do have a lot of quality footballers. So and there is a lot of quality within that side. So there definitely would have been a lot of disappointment coming away from the down game. But I think, yeah, as I said to you, it probably was time for Mickey to step aside and get a new man in, and we can only thank Mickey for the great work that he did do. I think it was a players manager. The players did love him, and he did give us some great days. But yeah, on to the next, I suppose, and I suppose we can just thank Mickey at this juncture, Matthew.
Yeah, exactly. I just think he did a very good job with the resource he had at Cavan. And when you think about the players that left over the last few years, like, he won an Ulster title without Darragh McVeety in the squad. And Darragh McVeety, I've seen him for Cavan. I've seen him playing in the Flesh and Parky Keeve against Cork. I hold this fact. I think Darragh McVeety is probably the most skillful player to come out of Cavan, and to win an Ulster title without that guy, and to bring up the likes of Thomas Galligan. Let's not forget, like, Thomas Galligan wouldn't have got the chance in the team without Mickey Graham. So like, it's I think he did a very good job in Cavan. In fairness to him, he dealt with these resources very, very well. Like, the players seem to take to him. Like Raymond Galligan, like, he seems to be a bar leader now. Killian Clark seems to have done well with him. Pádraig Faulkner really came out of his shell with Mickey Graham in charge as well. So yeah, I think he did a very good job with Cavan, winning the Ulster title as well, and winning that Ulster final the way they did against Donegal when no one expected it. I know it was during a COVID year, but I think it was a very, very good win for Cavan. It was a day of miracles, but to get you to an All-Ireland semi-final as well in that season against Dublin, to play against the best, really. I know 2021 was poor enough. 2022, yeah, 2022 wasn't too bad. I know you were in Division 4, but that's where you were. You went up, you got to the Tailteann Cup final, and let's not forget, if Thomas Galligan didn't get sent off at that Tailteann Cup final, they could have easily gone on and won at Cavan. So like, it's just the small margins, really. But at the same time, I think he did a very good job. And for a while there, we were talking about Mickey Graham as probably one of the best managers in the country. I remember back in 2020, we were all talking about either Mickey Graham or David Power from Tipperary being the best managers, and actually coincidentally both of them now left their posts. So the question, what has actually gone wrong? Well, Cavan haven't done too badly, but for Tipperary, what has gone wrong there? But yeah, it's interesting actually to look back at that year and think about how highly rated Mickey Graham and David Power actually were back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's the year of COVID and the year of, I suppose, of surprises, and obviously Cavan win the Ulster title on that day, and then Tipperary do the Munster title. But yeah, unfortunately, Matthew, all that feels like so long ago. It's coming up to 3 years ago now. And I suppose Cavan, I suppose we have this kind of knack of maybe holding on to the past, and it'd be good if we could just kind of move forward and obviously back the new manager, whoever comes in. And I think I was hearing obviously discussions, obviously you get names bandied about, but I think even replacement wise, in my own head, I was only talking to a man earlier on, and I think Con Gilligan, I know he's involved with the club team, but I think the likes of Con Gilligan would be a good coup for Cavan. I've always had dreams of Jim McGuinness managing Cavan, but I don't think that'll ever happen. I'd love him. I think even the likes of Oisin McConville might be available. I think Malik O'Rourke seems to be in everyone's checklist, or not checklist, but everyone would love to have Malik in Ulster. I think he'd be a fantastic man for Cavan. So there some of my candidates, they'd be definitely up there for me. But look, that's for the future, Matthew, and we wish Mickey Graham the very, very best luck as he stepped aside from the Cavan role yesterday, and the best wishes to Mickey going forward. I suppose, Matthew, we will crack into the action this weekend. It's All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-final action, and we have Dublin against Monaghan in Croke Park this Saturday at 5:30, and of course the game will be live on RTE, not GAA Go, so everyone can have a chill pill. Mr. Hurley, what are we thinking?
And don't forget BBC Two Northern Ireland that's out there too.
There we go. Thomas Niblock's going to be on the case tomorrow.
Yeah, and apparently it was very good during the hurling at the weekend. I actually didn't get a chance to watch it, but some excellent coverage, yeah. And he's a very good presenter, presenter, in fairness. It's a weird one really leading up to this game, because everybody seems to be writing off Monaghan, and actually look at stats and stuff like that. You nearly write off Monaghan before the ball's even thrown in, because they've conceded the average most out of the 4 teams left, and they've scored the average least. So arguably Monaghan actually don't deserve to be here, but the fact they are here, I think it's a brilliant achievement by them. For a county of them population, I think it's 60,000 in Monaghan. They can all fit into Croke Park with seats to spare, to put it into perspective, really. So it's a brilliant achievement for Monaghan to even get there, I think, to get to Croke Park on a day out against Dublin. But Dublin, they seem to be cooking at the right time, John. We said it at the start of the year or midway through the year. They seem to be struggling. Aaron Prendergast from Gaelic Games Fan TV and Seamus Brady from Moncleha and a few other Dublin fans were complaining about the style of play and where they're going and things like that. And we were saying maybe this era is coming to an end. But they seem to be timing it right. In fairness to them, you look at the Mayo performance, they did absolutely brilliantly, especially in that second half. They blitzed Mayo in that second half. I think they won the second half. I think it was 111 to 3 points against Mayo. So that was it was an amazing scoreline in that sense, because Mayo were touted as many as people's dark horses for the All-Ireland, and Dublin just tore them asunder. Colin Basquet's really going to be a guy that I'll be watching now on Saturday. 5 goals and 15 points for play. The guy's on fire. And
great game against Mayo today, yeah.
2-2 from play against Mayo as well. So he's definitely a guy that's on form. And when you look at Colin Basquet over the last few years, he's the kind of guy for Dublin that hasn't really hit the lights out when you think about it. He hit the lights out for Ballyboat and St. Enda's, but he hasn't for Dublin as such. But Monaghan need to keep an eye on him. I'm not sure who will go on him, to be honest with you. Would they put Conor Boyle in him or Ryan O'Toole? I'm actually not sure. It's going to be a big ask for Monaghan to deal with him. But then again, if Basquet's marked out of the game, Dublin's still a forwards to come into the fray. Look at Kieran Kilkenny, who hasn't hit the heights of this season. Conor O'Callaghan is their second top scorer, or their top scorer overall, with 2 goals and 24 points, I think it is, in the whole championship. And he was kept. Well, he wasn't kept quiet against Mayo. He was kept relatively quiet compared to Colin Basquet. But Monaghan have to watch them two in particular, Con and Cullen. They're in brilliant form at the moment. And you look at Dublin's midfield, James McCarthy seems to be hitting form at the right time. Brian Fenton seems to be doing well. Brian Howard, when called upon, seems to be doing well. Cluxton in goal is doing well as well. And they've only conceded 2 goals in the championship, Dublin, and both of them were to Laois in a game that really didn't matter in the last few minutes. Dublin scored, 4:30 in that game. That was the only game they conceded goals in. Then they haven't conceded a goal in the championship since. So their defence is really steady at the moment. And Mick Fitzsimons seems to be doing well in the back line. Lee Gallen seems to be doing well there as well. So it'll be a big ask for Monaghan. But what Monaghan have and Dublin, there may be questions about. Monaghan have heart and they have desire, and they will give it their all in Croke Park on Saturday. Will it be enough? I'm actually not sure. It'll be a tough ask for them, to reach an All-Ireland final. I'm not sure when's the last time they reached an All-Ireland final, or if ever. They've never won an All-Ireland, I don't think. So it's going to be a big ask for Monaghan. But even to get here, for Vinnie Corey to get here, it's an incredible achievement, and he should be up for Manager of the Year regardless of what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, it's funny, I think, going back to the likes, I think I was saying on Aaron's podcast last week, I think going back to even January, February, and when you're thinking about it with Monaghan, you were thinking what ways this year going to go? Because I can remember, I think they played Kerry in the league this year, and I think Kerry absolutely wiped the floor with them. I think Monaghan just were bereft of ideas and didn't know didn't know where Monaghan were going to go. And I think the season has turned out to be very prosperous for them. And I think Vinnie Curry's in there. Marty, the brother, is Marty's he's an exceptional coach. He's been up, as I said in our podcast last week. He's a brilliant coach. So I think it's a real credit to Monaghan for the pick of players that they have, the clubs that they have. So it is a real credit for them to get into this All-Ireland semi-final this weekend, I think. I suppose the game itself, obviously Dublin did blow Mayo out of the water completely last weekend, Matthew, and I suppose Monaghan would have to be so wary of that, because when Dublin get on top of you, when the Hill 16 starts singing and when the points start sailing over, they are a hard team to stop.
They are, and to be honest, actually looking at Monaghan's last few games, I know they got here and they've got here on merit, and fair play to them with the population they have. And as you mentioned in Division 1, you were questioning where Monaghan were going, and to get to an All-Ireland semi-final, fair play to them. But they haven't scored 2 goals or more since the Derry game in the Ulster Championship. In the All-Ireland Championship, they haven't scored 2 goals or more ever this season. So that's a big one for Monaghan. They've only scored a goal against Clare in a 123-118 win, and they scored a goal against Kildare through Conor McCarthy. That's the only goals they've scored in the Championship. So, or the All-Ireland Championship, excluding the Ulster Championship. So that's going to be a big worry for Monaghan in general. What I will say in the quarter-final, though, I know they won on penalties, and a lot of people will say it's pot luck. But in fairness, looking at the game, I thought Monaghan were a much better team than Armagh. I thought they were more up for it. They wanted the All-Ireland semi-final more. They wanted to be in Croke Park again more than Armagh. And they deserve to be here, in fairness to them. Like, you look at the performances of Conor McManus coming onto the pitch, and to do the majority of the work without the talismanic figure that is Conor McManus. And it's incredible, really, for Monaghan that they've more players coming up other than him. You look at Sean Jones on the bench, he could be a threat coming on as well as McManus. And then the guys on the field, like Jack McCarron's their top scorer so far. Conor McCarthy's having an amazing year at wing back. It'll be interesting to see if he bombs forward now against Dublin. And it'd be interesting to see, actually, will Monaghan implement a defensive system against them? Like against Armagh, they were kind of defensive. They had a lot of turnovers. They pressured Armagh throughout the game. Will they do the same to Dublin? I'd imagine, because Dublin are just vastly superior to Monaghan, I'd imagine Monaghan will sit back and they'll try and defend. They'll try and conserve a lead. A bit like in the last few years playing against Dublin, I remember Monaghan played them a few times in the quarter-final. Cavan played them in the semi-final one year. And yes, they did well enough in fairness to them, but they sat back an awful lot against the Dublin team. And to be fair, Dublin aren't as skillful or as good as they were back then, really. But Monaghan still have to be wary. They still have to be wary of Dublin. You look at Colin Maskell, you look at Con, you look at Brian Fenton. If they get a run on you, like, Monaghan could be in trouble in this game. And yeah, you'd hope the best for Monaghan, because they're the one. Well, not for yourself, John, obviously.
I know, in fairness, like, look at it. Like, I know, obviously, Aaron obviously gives me dogs abuse, but like, obviously, like the rivalry there. But like, I think it seems to just be different this time. And yeah, I know, obviously, Dick Larkin's like having a big campaign on Twitter for everyone to give it a support of his ideas. But I think, it's for the pick of players and the pick of the squad that they have, and good genuine GAA men are involved there. Obviously Vinny and Marty Corey, like, God, they know the game like the back of their hands. So look, I don't actually like. I obviously, of course, it's football. It's only football at the end of the day. But I do wish them the best this weekend, because it's just where they were in January, as I said a couple of minutes ago, January and February. And they've just turned their season into out of nearly nothing. And obviously Conor McManus coming back into a bit of form now and flying. And obviously, Micheál Bannigan doing very well at the minute. It's an All-Ireland semi-final against, obviously, a Dublin team that's hitting the right notes at the right time. But it's a credit to them. I know, obviously, a lot of people might think that's hard for me to say, but look, it is a credit to them.
It is, and when you look at over the last few seasons as well, how Monaghan have kept progressing nearly every year. They've been in the same stage every year. You question, how do they do it with the population they have? And it's incredible, really, that a county like this will get to an All-Ireland semi-final. Like, this is the equivalent of, I know Monaghan have vastly superior quality to these counties, but the likes of Leitrim, the likes of Carlow, who can't buy to get into a semi-final. But you look at their populations compared to Monaghan's, it's nearly about the same. And it's incredible, really, how Monaghan have progressed nearly every season. But what will worry me, actually, the only really standout performer for Monaghan over the last few games in the All-Ireland especially is Conor McCarthy. And the thing is, if Dublin keep him quiet, Monaghan again could be in trouble.
But positionally, Matthew, that has been so tight. Like, oh my God, like, and a lot of corner forwards I see, even in the club game, like, kind of like drifting back to that kind of wing back position. But my God, Conor McCarthy going to wing back, that's done his football the world of good.
It has, yeah, and he's actually excelled more at the wing back position, because you look at him at corner forward, he seems to be out of the way a small bit. Even with McManus in the team or McCarron, there seems to be pressure on them to deliver. But now he's in a wing back position, there's no pressure on him, just to roam up the field. And I think it's an extra outlet for Monaghan, an extra attacker when they're attacking out the field. And I think that's a brilliant move by them. And even Killy Lavelle, I've been kind of impressed with the midfield, especially against Armagh. His turnovers very good. Connor Boyle's turnovers, Rory Beggan. It's going to be interesting with Rory Beggan, actually. Will he play out from the back as much as he did against Armagh against this Dublin team?
Oh, will he get away with it? Like, will Dublin press the kick out? Like, will Dublin be like hounds as they usually are? I can't see Beggan getting away with that this weekend, can he?
No, I'd say he won't. Simply won't. Like, maybe Rafferty could, again, if Armagh were playing Dublin, but it's just the nature of him as goalkeeper. But I think Rory Beggan will probably just stay in the nets. But remember, one of the last times he played against Dublin, he hit, I think, a shot off the ground beyond the 65 over the bar. I don't know, did you remember that, John? It was
ridiculous. Yeah. He's a sick man.
Yeah, he is. Like, he's an incredible footballer as well as a goalkeeper, in fairness to him. But I'd imagine he won't go out as he often did against Armagh, Kieran Duffy. Like, it's going to be interesting actually to see who Monaghan put on Colin Baskill and Conor Callaghan. I'd imagine Conor Boyle will go on Callaghan. I'd imagine. I'm actually not entirely sure. You look at Baskill. Kieran Duffy, I think he went down Derek Hannibal at the Tyrone game and he struggled badly in the first half of that game against Tyrone. So it's going to be difficult when you think about it. Like, but in fairness, well, did Armagh really have standout forwards on the pitch? Like, Conor Turbot didn't start against Monaghan.
Yeah, so, and then I suppose, like the likes of Reid O'Neill there, I suppose like his moments of brilliance and the free kicks and the point he got, to try win the game. And obviously Monaghan went down the other end of the field, kicked it. It got another score, but like it will be very interesting. Like, even Conor Turbot, Conor was brilliant against Cavan, and then I think after the Cav game, I don't know, did his form dip or whatever can happen, but definitely from the Monaghan end of things. And I seen someone share it earlier on. Like, will Conor McManus start this game? That'll be very interesting.
I don't know, will he start? I really don't know, will he start? Will Monaghan actually stick to their guns and keep him on the bench for the last few minutes? And maybe it could be a blessing in disguise for Monaghan when you think about it. Because if you're bringing on McManus to the second half, a hungry McManus to prove his worth against Dublin, because in the Championship, he's been usually outmarked against Dublin in the last few years when playing against them in the Championship. So this is going to be a big game for him especially. But even looking at the last two games in head-to-head terms between the two sides, in the league, I know this isn't a Championship, but in the league, and it might give Monaghan a bit of confidence. I remember a game at Croke Park, I think it was 2020, it was before the coronavirus lockdown and stuff like that. They drew in Croke Park, and I remember that game specifically. Monaghan should have won that game. So that will give them confidence. And as well in 2022, they were the team to send Dublin down to Division 2. People might forget that as well. So over the last two games, Monaghan haven't lost to Dublin. So maybe it's at the back of Dublin players' minds as well. But maybe there's records to be broken as well. Like, you think back to the Cork and Kerry game. Like, Kerry had a lot of anger in them after the Mark Keane goal, and then they run asunder on Cork afterwards. You might fear that could happen Monaghan on Saturday. Like, it's going to be a big tussle to see what happens. But when you look at them head-to-head records, it might give Monaghan a bit of confidence that they can take on the Dublin team. And it definitely isn't the Dublin team of old. Like, it isn't the Dublin team under Jim Cavan. It's a Desi Farrell team now. So I think Monaghan, they'll be quietly confident coming into it. But once it comes to the game, I think if Dublin get the first maybe 3-4 points, it might knock the stuffing out of Monaghan. And I hope that doesn't happen, because I hope it's going to be a very exhilarating game. I hope it's going to be an even enough game. And the last thing you want, John, is a blowout once it's halftime. We don't want that.
Yeah, no, I suppose, Matthew, it is funny, like, because we were watching Dublin against Mayo, and my God, like, it really was reminiscent of like your 16, your 17, your 18 kind of performances. Like, my God, that just ripped Mayo to shreds and to just tore them apart, really. So I suppose you're hoping from like a spectator point of view and a neutral point of view that you're in for a tight game this weekend. But I don't know, I can see maybe Dublin. I can see Dublin kind of send out another statement, especially after that Mayo game. But I suppose from the Dublin Higgs match, obviously they were so good going forward the last year out, and really did feel like the Dublin fold. It was quite a bit of a frightening prospect, and even the likes of Brian Fenton, getting the bit between his teeth. And like, I'd be of the opinion maybe since the 2020 All Ireland success, we maybe haven't seen the best of Brian Fenton. I don't know, maybe it's that maybe since Jim Cavan's left, or a bit of drop in standards. But it even looks like definitely a scary prospect for the rest of the country now. Only 2 games left, but Mr. Fento has the grow back.
Yeah, and I think they all have it in fairness. Like the fire is in the belly. When you look at Division 2, they were really, really poor. And you could see Aaron's frustration really as a Dublin fan.
Yeah.
Looking at those games, like especially against the likes of not so much Meath, but against Kildare and Cork and Clare, especially in Croke Park. And they were very, very poor and just got over the line. And maybe that's kind of, we were talking about this off air about teams doing so well in the league. You look at Mayo, Galway, Roscommon, and now they're out of the championship without a whimper, really. Whereas Dublin and Kerry, who kind of saved it until the championship, until this very stage, the quarters of the semis, now they're clicking into gear. We'll get on to Kerry in a minute, but Dublin really seemed to, like, you look at the game against Mayo, my God, like the second half, they were absolutely incredible, and it was just there. I was there to witness that performance in the second half. Like in the first half, particularly, like I was there for the whole of the first half before catching the train. But in the first half, Mayo seemed to outplay them in the first 2 minutes, and we're thinking, okay, Dublin, see what your mettle is now. But then Colin Baskell gets the goal. They get a few points at the end of the half, and suddenly gets the bit of confidence. Like that's the thing with Monaghan as well. Even if Monaghan go, I don't know, a point up at half time. You see what happened with the Galway and Limerick game. Like, even if the underdog is a point up or something like that, there's always a chance that the favourites can come roaring back into the game. Just with a bit of energy between their teeth, with the bit between the teeth, as you mentioned there, with a bit of anger at the back of their minds, and they just tore them asunder after that. But like Dublin, I think they've done well since maybe the end of the Roscommon game in general, because you look at their results since then, since that game at Roscommon, where Aaron and a load of other Dublin fans have described that performance as very, very poor when they drew in Croke Park. They beat Kildare 22 points to 13. It's a Kildare team who they only beat by 2 points in Leinster when they struggled. Then they hammered Sligo. I know Sligo are Division 4, but they had a very good year. Maybe there was a bit of something in Sligo to say they could trouble Dublin a small bit, but Dublin rushed down to the carpet pretty quickly after that. And Mayo was an absolute slaughtering, 12 points, and he wouldn't have said that at the start of the game. So since that Roscommon game, I think Dublin have learned a lot of lessons since then, and they've grown in confidence game by game, win by win, and they are a dangerous prospect going into Croke Park on Saturday. What will be interesting, actually, John, will they start Paul Mannion?
Yeah,
because he didn't start against Mayo. I don't think he started the last few games either. He's one of their top scorers with 113. He's an incredible baller. We've seen it for Kilmacud Crokes. But will they rest him until coming on in the second half? Because you'd imagine Monaghan might do the same with Conrad Manus, and maybe Dublin might think we need to have an ace in our pack as well, just in case it's tight. So it's going to be interesting to see if Mr. Mannion starts.
Yeah, like even I suppose, and me and Aaron kind of, like, I think you were on the podcast as well. We were kind of discussing like the likes of Jack McCarthy, what's his influence going to be this year. I know he's came on the last year and obviously brought so much energy to the Dublin attack against Mayo, much to Mayo's devastation. Like he's brought a good lot to it, and obviously like Paul Mannion, does he start? Like, it's an All-Ireland semi-final, so we used to playing in these big games. I wouldn't be surprised if he is given that start in jersey. Like even Colin Basquel, he had such a good game the last year. So there's so many options. Obviously, Cluxton has really shored up the goalkeeping position, probably much to Mr. O'Hanlon's devastation. Like there's a lot of ones probably still missing out, but yeah, Dublin are fairly stacked really when you think about it. And it was a very, very of old sort of performance the last day out against Mayo. And my God, when they are in full flow, it is very enjoyable football to watch. Obviously, much to Mayo's, I keep using this word, but devastation again, but this weekend, it will be very interesting. Is it a case of Monaghan playing well up until 50 or 60 minutes and then folding and then letting Dublin coast home to victory? Like the Monaghan park the bus to go man-to-man this weekend. Like from a Monaghan end of things, what can you see this weekend, Matthew?
You mentioned them going to man-to-man. If they do that, they'll get hammered. It's as simple as that. And that's what usually happens if a team goes man-to-man. If they're very, very naive going into a game, if an underdog is like that, they're essentially going to get hammered. And Monaghan won't do that because Vinnie Corey's a smart man. Has a smart mind. He's a smart man. I think they'll play defensive. They have to. Because if they're going to try and win the game, maybe not as a spectacle. And this is why I think this won't be much of a spectacle. If Monaghan are really going to put it up to Dublin, it's either going to be a washout if Monaghan are brave, or if Monaghan are conservative and smart, then it's going to be a low-scoring game. So either way, John, I don't think it's going to be very good for the neutrals in fairness. I don't want to, burst anybody's bubble over this, but Like, it's just the way it is. It's the way it is with modern day football. But in terms of Monaghan, they won't go man to man. They won't. No. I think they'll go defensive. They'll try and play the blanket defence. They'll try and have 15 men behind the ball or something like that and make the game as boring as possible, or maybe pass it over back and things like that, just to frustrate the Dublin fans maybe, because you've seen it actually in 2011 with Dublin Donegal. I know there were different times, but Donegal seriously frustrated Dublin at that point, and you could hear the Dublin fans, getting really frustrated. Then they were booing in the hill, and yeah, they were under the cosh that game, and that's what you need to do against the Dublin team in Croke Park. Get in their face, get the fans riled up. And that's what Monaghan need to do on Saturday to have any chance of winning. And of course, their shot accuracy has to be on point. Like I discussed it last week with Galway and Limerick, that Galway's in the hurling, Galway's shot accuracy has to be on point. It's the same with Monaghan here. If Monaghan get under 60%, they're gone. Simple. So they need to, to get up to 70. And they had 48% against Armagh. I know they played well against Armagh, but if they produce that percentage again, I think Dublin could run asunder on them, unfortunately. But you'd be hoping for a good game. You'd be hoping for a competitive game at least. If not a good game, a good quality game, a competitive game at least, where it's tight up until the very, very end of the game. But yeah, it's going to be very difficult for Monaghan. But if they go man and man, to put a long story short, they'll get absolutely roasted, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
they have to go defensive. There's no other way.
Yeah. Oh, looking forward to the game this weekend, and hopefully it lives up to the billing. What would be your general prediction, Matthew? What are we thinking?
Yeah, it's hard to go against Dublin, really. I'd say Dublin maybe by... Geez, I don't want to say by 10 points or anything like that, because that's just, very rude to Monaghan people in general. But I'm going to go 7. Dublin by 7 in this game. Like, Dublin should have too much. You look at their firepower. You look at the fact they're hitting form at the right time.
Yeah.
Say Dublin all the way.
Yeah, don't think I can disagree with much of that, unfortunately, for the Farney Army. But we will see this Saturday, Matthew, and then we'll move on to Tolton Cup final action. It's down against Meath in Croke Park, and the game is at 3 p.m. And of course, the game will be live on RTE. The game, of course, will be just before the Dublin and Monaghan game. Down v Meath, Matthew. This was back in the day one of the best games, one of the best spectacles. We got to go look forward to, probably way before our time. Walking on the shoulders of giants would be a phrase that we could use for this particular game. Looking forward to this weekend, Matthew. Very tight one to call.
And even going back to 2010, when you look at these two sides, like you look at Down being in All-Ireland final, Meath winning a Leinster title, I would say winning with an asterisk, but anyway, they won the Leinster title in the end. But you look at the stages that them sides were back then, and now they're in the Tailteann Cup final. It's a serious fall from grace, but to put all jokes aside, in fairness to them, they did well to get to this final. Down, like you look at their run to the final, they beat yourselves in the quarterfinals. They did very well to come over that challenge when all the odds were stacked against them. Obviously, they've played Meath in the Tailteann Cup before. Meath beat by 2 points in Parnell Park, and Meath were much better than. So maybe there's a bit of anger for Down to go back and win it. So you look at their run so far: Down, Waterford, Tipperary, Longford and Laois. Other than Cavan, they've beaten, and they stuck 8 goals past Laois in a devastating performance in the semi-final. They were very, very good in that semi-final against Laois. Liam Kerr scoring a hat-trick, and he's a guy to watch really on Saturday. Like I think Cavan mentioned him as being a star for Down, and he definitely has proven to be. Like, he scored 4 goals in the championship, 3 against Laois, and obviously the goal against Donegal in the Ulster Championship as well. So he's done very, very well in the Tailteann Cup and the Championship in general. Pat Havern has done very well for Down as well. Danny McGill, Oran Murdoch, they're 2 guys to watch in fairness. Like, Danny McGill is a goal getter. Oran Murdoch is an absolute colossal figure in midfield. So they'll be definitely ones to watch come Saturday. But you look at Meath, I know they have less scores considerably than Down, but you look at their key scorers: Jordan Morris, Matthew Costello, Aaron Lynch, James McEntee. Like, they're quality players. They're Sam Maguire level players. So I think Meath would be definitely raring to go on this. But it's a tight one to call, actually, John. And out of the 3 games, it's probably the most intriguing, because it could go either way. Because you know, but a lot of people are fancying Down as well because of the way they played against Laois in that semi-final. That was a Laois team on the way up. But you look at Meath's run in in the Tailteann Cup. They beat an impressive Wexford team in the quarterfinal. They beat Antrim in the semi-final, and Antrim have massively improved, to be fair to them too. So, yeah, it's going to be a very enticing game, John, and definitely looking forward to watching this.
Yeah, I suppose obviously from the down end of things, Matthew, like, oh my God, I think it was 8 goals against Laois last year in Croke Park, and my God, it was just ridiculously efficient. And like as I said in the podcast a few weeks ago, like Mr. Conor Lafferty looked fairly annoyed when both 2 goals went in from the Laois end of things when the score of goals gets down, but down were very, very good against us in Berefty Park. Like, they just looked full of life, full of leather, and they were very full credit for their victory. So I have to kind of say Down have been very good in this Tailteann Cup. I suppose me getting to the final, no major surprises. Obviously, they'd like to think that they're better than Tailteann Cup, but this weekend will be very tight going into it. Out of all 3 games, you have to say, as you said, will be very intriguing, very tight to call. From a down end of things, what players come in for them?
Yeah, it's a lot of players actually that could win for them. Look at Pat Avern, the guy that suits you on the freeze, could definitely do it. Liam Kerr is a goal getter, 4 goals and 10 points across the Ulster Championship and the Tailteann Cups, which is an absolutely brilliant tally. Danny McGill with 4-5, Owen Murdoch with 4-1, Rory Mason, Andrew Gilmore, Eugene Brannigan, of course, with that successful Kilcoo team. He could definitely turn it on when he wants to as well. So, yeah, there seems to be a feel-good factor in Down. And you look at the players I named there, they can all have match-winning performances. And you look at Liam Kerr, you look at Danny McGill especially. If they get a sniff on goal, they'll go for it. And that's the thing with this Down team. If they get a sniff on goal, they will go for it. And it's the same with Meath, actually, when you look at their games in the past. Like, they seem to get goals to keep them in games. Like, in case of Bant in the league, they scored, I think, 4-8 against Clare, and they won that game despite Clare scoring 16 points. They won a game against Cork, scoring 3-14, and Cork scored 19 points. So both sides are synonymous for getting goals. And that's what we love to see, John. This is why it's such an intriguing encounter, in fairness. But you look at Down's talent, they could definitely turn it on Saturday. And when you look at the beat side of things as well, you look at Jordan Morris, Matthew Costello, Aaron Lynch, Donald Lennon in great form. Jack Flynn is very good for Rathote at the club championship and very good in this Tailteann Cup campaign too. Jason Scully's very good. Killian O'Sullivan hasn't hit the levels he could hit in previous seasons, but he's definitely raring to go for this final here. You look at Jason Scully, Owen Frayn's a good young player to have in the team. Like Harry Hogan's one of the best goalkeepers, I think, in terms of distribution in the country for Meath as well. So, and as well as that Niall Kane for Down. So, in fairness, there's some very, very good players at both teams. They're both well able to take their chances for goals. They're both evenly matched. I'm actually intrigued. Even talking about this game, John, has made me
excited.
The appetite.
Brilliant stuff, Matthew. That's our job. And that's why we do it so well. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Prediction. Who's going to bring home the Tailteann Cup this year?
It's a really tight one to God. Because Meath won the last game, and there's going to be a fire in the belly of the Down lads, I'm going to go for Down. I'm going to go 2 points. It's going to be very, very tight. And there's going to be a lot of goals in this game. I'd imagine there'll be about 6 or 7 goals in this game because both sides really go over the back of the net. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Hopefully Meath don't get up to their old tricks and start scoring tries on us, Matthew, in a final. Mr. Joe Sheridan will be in attendance, no doubt about it. And we would move into the last game of the weekend, Mr. Hurley, in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-final on Sunday. It's Derry against Kerry in Croke Park at 4 p.m. Of course, the game will be live on RTE/BBC, as Matthew Hurley said at the start of this podcast. Matthew Hurley, I think the whole country, every GAA fan in this country is hoping to God Derry do not stink the piss out, but is there going to be a chance that they don't do that? I don't think so.
Not at all, no. But it was kind of a weird feeling actually in the quarterfinal against Cork. Like, I'm a staunch Cork fan and things like that, but even up in the Dally that day, looking at that game, jeez, it was like watching paint dry, John. It was pretty poor. I'm sure Kev would agree with me as well. Like that style of football from Derry wasn't great on the eye, and hopefully they won't play like that against Kerry. But you'd feel if they have any chance of winning the game, they need to get Shane McGuigan in the game, and they need to defend like the lives depend on it. So, yeah, I think unfortunately, John, it's going to be another defensive encounter if Derry are going to have a chance at this.
Kevy, out of nowhere. How are you, sir? I didn't even know you're coming.
I'm brilliant. Yeah, sorry I'm a wee bit late.
I don't even want to know whose front door that is.
It's mine. The woman's away from home for a couple of weeks, so she's away to do a bit of training in her new job. So in foreign lands, so I'm stuck with the kids. So I'm outside now, trying to not interrupt them late at the evening. But looking forward to chatting about this weekend. Also, I suppose the only way I got here was that Marty Marcy gave me a spin up in his round, and apparently I asked him where he got all the money for the petrol was, and Tuberty told him Tuberty gave him it apparently. So yeah, it's always good. It's always good, you know. Always good when a Cork and Antrim man can have a as they call it in Scotland, a blether. When we have no sticks in the game, as they say, coming into this weekend, but really, really intrigued about what's going to happen this weekend in certain ways, because I just caught the tail end of what Matthew was saying, and for me, I think he's in the small bit that I heard him say, I think he's pretty right. If Derry and Monaghan don't get a foothold in these games very quickly, defensively, then they're going to be in big trouble. That last year, Derry in the semi-final against Galway got a real foothold early in the game. It looked at halftime they were in the ascendancy, and then they just collapsed in on themselves. They can't afford any slip-up against this Kerry team, who have been, let's be honest, quite dysfunctional this year. And then the other side of that, one would have to fear if Monaghan don't get off to a good start and don't get a foothold in this game, what could happen to Monaghan. So it's intriguing in lots of ways, and looking forward to hearing one or two of Matthew's stats, as per usual, possibly when it comes to Derry in semi-finals. It'll be interesting to hear what his stats are on that, because last year they lost one, and the last time I believe they lost one before that was maybe, Matthew, keep me right here, was McFlynn and all played, but 98 Galway beat them as well, I think it was. So, Derry have a habit of getting here the week that they've had as well. We had a lot of, ups in the county with the Miners winning again. It'd be interesting to see how they're going into this game against Kerry. I think that's the big game, is Derry versus Kerry.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had a bit to say about your club in Scotland, am I right, Kevy?
Yeah, well, just in coaching a wee bit there with a hurling club in Scotland. It's the only hurling club in Scotland, so we have to go down to Liverpool and Manchester and Leeds for games. So unfortunately, like, sometimes a lot of guys who are students over here have transferred in as maybe 1,300-1,400 quid for a bus. So it's not easy, John, but we keep it going. And some of these guys are, I think 13 of the guys I'm taking this year played for Lancashire in the Laurie Maher final this year. So, they're quite dedicated, and they do travel a lot of miles. But hopefully, if there's a few sponsors out there that can help us, that'd be great.
We'll get the link sorted for you, Kevin. And there's a website people can come on and donate, is there? Is it?
Yeah. Hopefully the link will be up there, John, to the underneath this podcast. So that would be great. Actually, we have one or two Cork men there. Matthew, Phil Shine, that he captained Douglas to county final a couple of years back. We've a couple of guys from Waterford, phenomenally talented hurlers. Guy Simon Thomas, another kid there, Shane Nugent. Really, really talented hurlers. Couple of tip boys as well. So, look, it'd be nice to see if they can get something. But when you're talking about an amateur sport, guys are playing. Their subs, they're paying for their bags and their kits, and then every week, like, we go. If we're going down maybe 3-4 times a year to Manchester and Leeds to play these other teams, it's costing each guy about 80 quid. So unfortunately, we just don't have that. But they're trying to keep the game going. So hopefully somebody out there is listening to it and maybe give us a wee handout. Thanks, John, for that.
No problemo, Kevin. Absolutely, always good to give a helping hand. Kevin McGurty, we are talking about Derry against Kerry this weekend. What are we thinking?
Um, it's very hard to know. I was thinking about this before earlier on this afternoon before I come on. Conor McCluskey is going to be a big factor in this, the cornerback, where he plays, and what Kerry decide to do with him. We all know going into this game what Derry's game plan is. It's very conservative. Hold back, try to suck up what's coming in, and then hit you on the burst. Maybe try to pick points off. I heard the tail end of what Matthew was saying about McGuigan. Absolutely right. If I'm on the other side, if I'm on the Kerry side, if I'm Pally looking at this, I'm looking at McGuigan and maybe looking at Toner. Bottle him up as much as we can. We talked earlier on the season about Kerry being dysfunctional, not really playing as well as they could have played. They haven't been, and part of that is we were so inspired by their defence last year, and their defence this year has been quite poor. They stepped it up last day in Croke Park. There's absolutely no doubts about it. But this is a very, very different challenge this time around. It's going to be really intriguing to see the way they set up defensively, the way that they look at Derry's game plan also in terms of McCluskey, that cornerback that likes to be the springboard, if you want to put it that way, for the Derry forward line. The midfield battle is going to be really intriguing as well. Kerry this year at midfield haven't really delivered. Jim O'Connor was brilliant last day out. There's no doubts about that. How they deal with Glass, how they deal with Rogers, who's again Rogers' real heartbeat of this Derry team. So I have no doubts that Kerry will be probably targeting 2 or 3 of the Derry players. I think it's a Kerry win written all over it, if I'm totally honest with you. I think a bit like last year, Derry's game plan will last them a while, but it'll not last them the 70 minutes. Mm-hmm. Again, I'll say this, like I said at the top when I first come on, I think they need to get a foothold in the game early. If they don't, I fear for them a bit. And I just think that maybe the last day out was Kerry clicking into gear. They've been really schizophrenic. I've been really critical of them this year. You know, I'm a big Kerry fan. I heard Matthew earlier on in the year when he was on about the Cork game that they played maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. They just weren't clicking. The last day out, they were okay. Let's temper that with it. It was a poor enough thrown team, but they were clinical. And their backs really, for me, Thomas Sullivan, Foley, Morley, these guys started to kick into gear for the first time this year. So, you know, in a way, I do think it's a Kerry win, and I do fear for Derry a wee bit. I just want Derry to get a foothold in the game very early on to make a game of it. But I think Kerry have too many aces for them. There's too many fires to put out for Derry. And I think that possibly Kerry are too cute behind the ears for them.
Yeah. Can you see Kevy at 2011 Dublin Donegal similar type of performance from Derry this weekend?
I can't at the minute. Okay. I would love to see it. Don't get me wrong. As I say, I'm a massive Kerry fan, but look, it would be great for the GF if Derry could get into the All Ireland final. Unfortunately, the semi-final parents have thrown up what we all suspect will be a final. There's no doubts Derry are developing well, as I say to you at the top of the show. It's really, really great to see this Derry minor team. You know, their schools are going real well. It's a great, great boost for Derry GAA right across the board. In fact, it's phenomenal. And what they're doing is absolutely terrific. So hopefully moving forward, you know, maybe this year's not their year, but they get a few guys through and they can help. You know, they can, again, get back in the Ulster Championship, maybe back in the All-Ireland semi-final. They're a wee bit, I suppose that I would think they're a wee bit naive compared to this Kerry team. You know, this Kerry team has won, what, five minors, 4 under 21s. You know, they've been around the block for 2, 3, 4 years now. Lots of them didn't win for the first couple of years, learned a few lessons. Derry are just getting there at the time. So hopefully that's fine.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Any other kind of thoughts on the game this weekend, Matthew?
Yeah, just following up on Cavan there, talking about Derry's semi-final record. I'm just looking at it there. They before the qualifiers, they've been in 7 All-Ireland semi-finals. They only won 2 of those, and since the qualifiers has been introduced, they've been in 3 and lost every single one of them. I think in 01, 04 was against Kerry, coincidentally, and obviously last year against Galway. So they've been in 10 overall, and they've won 2 games in the semi-final. So their record isn't very, very good in the semi-final, as you mentioned there earlier, lads. So that's going to be a big aspect as well. And what I will say about Derry in general, for Chrissy McCaig, I think this is going to be the biggest game of his career. It's going to be the biggest test of his career. The biggest test of David Clifford's career as well, because you'd imagine Chrissy McCaig will go on him. And Chrissy McCaig would stick to him like glue. It's going to be a big, big challenge for David Clifford in general, but a big challenge for Chrissy McCaig. Like, he's what, 32, 33 now? Like, it's going to be a big, big challenge for him to keep up with Clifford for the whole game. And what I will say for Derry, they've conceded the most goals, I think, out of the 4 semi-finalists. They conceded a goal against Cork, probably sloppily so. They conceded a goal against Clare. They conceded 2 goals against Monaghan and Ulster as well. And yeah, they seem to concede a lot of goals. But what I will say about Kerry, and we talk a lot about their defence, they've only conceded 1 goal in the championship so far. And that was Owen McLaughlin's goal in Killarney against Fermayo. So the Kerry don't seem to concede goals an awful lot. But then there's the question, have they played anybody other than Mayo? Like, as Kevin mentioned there, Tyrone were probably just a bit off it in the quarter-final. They just didn't perform. They were just lax. I don't know what went on with Tyrone that day. But other than Tyrone and Mayo, well, Tyrone on a good day in Mayo, who did Kerry actually play in the championship? Tipperary, Clare, Cork, Louth. Like, they aren't really up to the top level. So, and this is why I think Derry, like, they might be going under the radar a small bit, but like, you look at the teams they've played, Monaghan, Armagh, Donegal, like, those are very, very good teams, and also very sticky teams. And Kerry haven't had very good tests, in fairness to only maybe the Tyrone and Mayo game. Well, to be honest, against Mayo, they fell flat in their face in Killarney. And that could happen too in the semi-final. Like, Kerry are very, very, they've been very inconsistent this season. Like, you look at the league, for example, they lost 4 games in the league, I think it was. They won 3, and they were very, very poor in the league overall. They lost to that Tyrone team in the league. So I don't think Kerry are actually that good. But the thing is, Derry, if they are to win the game, they have to play defensive. They have to play 15 men behind the ball. If they don't do that, I think Kerry, the likes of David Clifford, the likes of Shawnee O'Shea, the likes of Paul Ganey, Tony Brosnan, if he plays, or even if he comes on later on, will pick things off them. But I'd agree with Kevin as well about the midfield battle. It's going to be huge, because Kerry, they struggled badly against Cork, I remember, in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, with Colm O'Callaghan and Ian Maguire. And when Maguire and O'Callaghan went on, Rogers and Glass cleaned them out completely. So they might do the same with the Kerry midfield here. Like, they're excellent players. They're ball winners. They're tall lads. They will get in Kerry's face. And Jack Barry is really, a very elite midfielder, let's just say. And he's not up to the level of Glass and Rogers. So that'll be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. But, like, the thing is as well with Kerry, if they put one man marker on McGuigan, there's the question with Derry, who else is there? Paul Cassidy, maybe so. Like, he scored quite a few bits from play, but not a crazy amount. Ethan Doherty the same. Niall Toner is a decent enough forward. Benny Hearn on his day, but that's the thing, on his day. And Niall Loughlin hasn't really hit the form this year. Lachlan Murray comes on usually in games. So Derry don't really have scores throughout the team other than McGuigan, and that's going to be a worry for them too. So it's good. There's a lot of interesting aspects to this, but unfortunately for myself, I think Kerry are going to win the game. It's probably going to be a Kerry and Dublin final, but what Derry play and what tactic they use, especially with the midfield and the defensive tactics, is going to be very, very interesting. And what they do with Conor McCluskey, as Kevin mentioned there, what's going to happen with him? Is he going to go on Ganey, or is he going to let roam? We'll have to see on Sunday, but it's going to be an interesting enough game.
Yeah, he's a really dangerous individual, McCluskey, because obviously he's a good tight marking cornerback, but he can also add to that attack. He's that springboard for them. I think Matthew mentions a couple of excellent points there. The thing that this game comes down for me is, Kerry have more firepower, in my opinion, up front
Yeah.
than Derry do. If three of Kerry's inside forwards don't click, three others will. And Matthew hit, he's not dancing on the head of a pin here. He was straight to the point. McGuigan is that man. So if I'm Paddy Tally this weekend, or this week coming into the game, and I'm Jack O'Connor, I'm wondering how I'm starving ball into him. Yes, Toner gets ball. Yes, Lachlan Murray, if he comes off the bench, is getting ball. Is Paul Cassie going to kick 1-3, 1-4 for you? No. And we look back to last weekend's All Ireland hurling semi-finals and the game on Saturday. I think Neil McManus on BBC summed it up very well when the ball was going in early in the first 20 minutes in the Galway game. He was saying about Collins inside for Galway. He was like, you just can't be a one-trick pony. Somebody, in other words, will work that out very, very quickly. And that's what happened on Saturday. Limerick worked that out. We're able to get the grips with it. So, McGuigan in a way is a one-trick pony at the minute. Others have to step up to the mark. Do I see that happening? I just don't see it happening. And this is the big problem with Derry. They have really, really good defenders. Take on board Matthew's point about people like McKeag. Brendan Rodgers can play full-back. What a player. He can play midfield. McCluskey, what a player. Gareth McKinley's brilliant at the back. They have a really tight unit in maybe their back six if they want to have it. The problem is, and has always been actually, even when they won All Ireland, is they don't have enough people up front to support, McGuigan. And, when you look back at the Paddy Bradley era, it was always Paddy Bradley who was in there to support him. It was maybe him and Enda Muldoon at one stage, and that was the only two that there was there. Then Derry died for a while. They had always great defenders. I mean, you can talk about the Sean Marty Lockharts of this world, the Kevin McCloys, the Johnny McBrides, the Paul McFlynns, the Gerard O'Keeans. All these guys were tremendous, tremendous defenders. Derry have always lacked that thing up front where they can have 4, 5, 6 scoring forwards. And I just think Kerry have 4, 5, 6 scoring forwards. And even if Derry hold 2 or 3 of them, the other 4 or 5 will step up to the mark. And I suppose the last point I want to put on this is, you look at what Derek Ling said about Kilkenny at the weekend. Their bench came good for Kilkenny. I think Kerry's bench is much stronger than Derry's, if I'm totally honest with you. So that's why I think it's a Kerry win written all over it, if I'm honest with
you. Yeah. I think that's where Derry will continue to fall short, probably in the All Ireland. They get away with an Ulster, Kevy, but not All Ireland is what you'd be thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when you're going against the Dubs or against Kerry, the most elite teams, the Kerry defence isn't great. Maybe there's question marks about the Dublin defence, but when you don't have that firepower, when we're looking at teams like Dublin and Kerry, when you're looking at Clifford, when you're looking at O'Shea, when you're looking at Geeney, when you're looking at Basquel, when you're looking at, Brosnan, when you're looking at Kilkenny coming off a bench, or Conor O'Callaghan, all these guys are standing up to the mark. When some of them aren't playing well, the other guys are stepping up. So I don't think Derry have that strength and depth the way them two teams have. And ultimately, that's where you're going to win in All Ireland. At the start of the year, when you're looking at yourself in January, have I got enough to go against Kerry or Dublin? I don't think Derry do, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's where they will be coming up short, unfortunately. I think all eyes point towards a Kerry victory on Sunday. Just something that came up there during the week, lads. I think it was on Thursday. The GAA and the GPA collaborate for a campaign to tackle online abuse of players and officials. The Gaelic Association and the GPA of today launched a major new campaign that seeks to target and tackle the online social media abuse of players, referees, managers, and officials. The In Their Boots campaign is a series of specially commissioned videos which over the upcoming weeks will heighten awareness around the damage caused by vitriolic targeting and abuse of players, referees, managers, and officials online in an effort to create a bigger online sideline. Very interesting stuff by the GAA and GPA, Kevin.
Yeah, it is interesting. I suppose I'm going to be the first to admit that I wasn't a big fan of referees. But some of the incidents that we've seen very, very recently have been very, very, very disturbing. From Rads down in Wexford, and especially the one we seen in Tyrone not so long ago, isn't good. And when we talk about referees, let's not isolate it just to referees. That shouldn't happen. They're there to call a game. They don't get it right. When we look back at the Clare game against Kilkenny on Sunday, I don't think the referee was great for Clare. I think he called a lot of what I would call very harsh fouls. But then when Clare look at themselves, they missed a 30-yard free in the first 2 minutes of the game. So always look at yourself. That's the point I'm trying to make before you start blaming others. The other issue is the players come in now for a lot of abuse. There's absolutely no doubts about that. And look, no matter what county we're in, players are selected on the basis of what a manager thinks. Doctors differ, patients tie. Managers are there. I'll see something different to Matthew, who will see something different to you. And unfortunately, managers select these players based on what they think. They might not always get it right. In fact, normally they don't. But players just go out to do the best they can do. And I understand people are paying good money in the matches, but they have to be respectful of players and officials as well.
Mr. Hurley.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Kevin's saying there. Yes, I agree. I know we're talking about the hurling and this is supposed to be a football podcast now, but like even the Clare and the Kilkenny game last week, yes, the referee was very, very poor. I thought he made a very few questionable decisions, including the Hugh Lawler one and the Mark Rogers one where he stuck at the back of the net. But at the same time, you look at Clare's shot accuracy, you look at the errors they made, you look at the goal they conceded, which was avoidable. That's not Colm Lyon's fault, really, and I don't know why Clare fans would actually blame him. Like even I seen a few GAA accounts go on social media saying Kilkenny's man of the match, and they put a picture of Colm Lyons. I think that's bang out of order too. In fairness, like Kilkenny clearly were better Clare on the day. You look at the likes of Owen Cody and TJ Reid on them. Like Colm Lyons didn't have any impact on the game. Clare kind of beat themselves, and it's the same with the football games. Much the same. And I think I'd agree with Kevin, it is disturbing what's happening to referees up and down the country. Like I remember the Roscommon referee last year getting actually hit on the pitch and the match being abandoned. That's not on, simply not on. And people that do that should be banned from GAA stadiums up and down the country. And it's even the stuff with Lee Chin getting racially abused earlier on the year as well. Like it's continuing time and time again this year, and even the stuff online as well. And yeah, it's really disgusting when you think about it. And hopefully it stops in the next few years. I'm not sure it will because the presence of social media is so high at the moment. But yeah, it is really disturbing, as Kevin mentioned there. And yeah, I hope it stops, but I don't think it will in the next few years. That's the honest truth of it. It's really, really poor from people in general to blame referees, to blame players. And I remember Leitrim actually against New York earlier on the year. A lot of people online there blaming Leitrim players, and that's just not on. It really is. And Andy Moore got a load of abuse as well after that defeat to New York, and they can't just accept, look, New York were the better team. They deserved it. And yeah, that's the thing as well. And yeah, it's really a shame. Even the Kilkenny Cabogie players getting a bit of abuse this weekend as well. Again, like they could have had their reasons for not walking down the tunnel as well and things like that. It's their own decision. And I don't know why people find the need to abuse them online over it. Like, it's a thankless cause when you think about it. The referees are doing a thankless job. They make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the players, even the managers, even fans. But to abuse them afterwards, it's wrong. It's really wrong. It's been happening for a few years, John. So I'm not surprised that the GAA are actually putting up the finger now, and the GPA in general, and saying enough is enough. And they're right to do that because it's about time.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, no, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Obviously, we go back to the old European Charter of Human Rights. Everybody's allowed to express themselves in a certain way as long as it's inside the confines of the law, of course. But everybody will have a different view on a game. We get, of course, the great villains in the game and the great the people that we love. I mean, Jerry McInerney, if we go way back in Galway hurling, was a great character in the game. Somebody like John Lynch, they would have got a lot of media attention before social media. You know, they were just, I suppose, the old champions of being, you know, the cool guys in the game. But now we see all these people, everybody that wants to go to a match wants to comment on something. That's the right to comment on it, but it must be in a respectful manner. And I suppose the point, John, that I want to make is that there's many a day I stood at Kilmacud Sevens after, you know, a day at the Sevens and had a pint with somebody like Brian Crowe, or had a yarn with somebody like Joe McQuillan, and we never got on. There's no doubts about that. We never got on. Or Mick McGrath from Donegal. We'd have fallen outs on the pitch, but we were able to sit there and have a pint afterwards, and it was all in a relaxed atmosphere. We've now gone above that to this whole thing where, well, he's this and he's that, or she's this and she's that. You know, we need to just leave it. You know, when it comes to the fact is that people are stabbing people. And
that's what is going to get on to next. But I suppose, Kevin, it's the fake accounts on Twitter. It's Liam780957 saying Aidan O'Shea's this or he's that or he's this. It's given. I don't think the abuse, unfortunately, like GPA fair play to them. It's a great campaign, but I just can't see it stopping on your Twitter, for instance.
Yeah, you're not going to cut it out straight away. I don't know what Matthew's view on this is, because obviously, like, we look at an issue like, you know, Matthew would be much more closer to this than me. Like the Cork hurlers, for example, during their strike, and they got a lot of negative publicity before social media take off. Maybe them days were the Bebo days or whatever else that was back in the day. But you know, they were real trailblazers trying to, you know, promote what players were doing. Maybe they didn't go about it in the right direction, but they were trying to do the best they could for amateur players, and they came in for so much abuse and national headlines. And now we get this, you know, Aidan O'Shea, you know, is scratching his head when the ball comes down and his right hand isn't up, and somebody wants to comment that on Twitter. And I think, John, I told you about this before, that Antrim were playing Donegal in the first round of the Ulster Championship. It was Jim McGuinness's first game, actually, that in 2011. And the week beforehand, we had spent a weekend in Sligo, and we'd played against Mayo, and I damaged my own leg. And somebody wrote into the paper the week afterwards, well, what was one of the Antrim subs doing, listening to his iPod? I wasn't. I was actually listening to the match on the radio, you know, because sometimes you might get something there from a general feedback. So members of the public who pay in, they're entitled to their opinion, but sometimes they just need to rein it in. And as I say, I'll leave it on this. It's really, really, really disturbing when people are carrying knives to matches. You know, at the end of the day, as I say, we all fall out with one another. We all can, you know, get over a pint. We're also seeing this nonsense now of people fighting each other in Hill 16. The one thing about the GAA was we could always stand beside each other. You can fall out with Joe McQuillan, or you can fall out with a pint after. You can fall out with Colin Lyons or whoever else it is in the world, and you can have a pint after with them. Can we not just get back to that, please?
Yeah. And one thing I will say,
actually, Kevin,
what I will say about Kevin's absolutely right, and the Hill 16 fights, especially during the Clare and Kilkenny game, I'm sure both of you have seen that reverberating online. Disgraceful scenes. And I seen a young girl, hopefully she's okay after this. She got hit in the face, got a big gash in her eye. Hopefully she's okay after this, and it must have been a traumatic event for to witness that. But it's scary, as Kevin mentioned.
But there is, sorry to put in, Matthew, but like, I've been on Hill 16 once or twice. There's so much security up there. How is this stuff happening? There's guards at games too.
I think, honestly, John, it might be, like Seamus Brady actually mentioned it on my podcast last week, some of them are 15 or 16-year-olds. And some of them just don't know. They're not taught at a young age what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. Possibly that's a reason as well. But another reason, I think, like I was up at the Hill for Galway and Armagh, the All-Ireland quarter-final last season. Brilliant game, by the way. But I seen a load of fans get, I don't know how many points. So I'd say it was about 4 or 5 points. And they clearly weren't able for it. You know, they weren't thinking straight either. And they have to take responsibility as well for serving that youngsters as well, and that's a big thing. But even the Kilkenny incidents in the Hill at the weekend, and I heard an incident on Twitter as well of a Galway fan throwing a flare or something. I've seen that online. That's disgraceful as well. And I've seen even though I think it was Cavan and Westmeath fans at the Tailteann Cup last year fighting on the Hill, throwing a few punches. We're getting to that stage now, like Galway and Kilkenny fans last year shouting abuse at each other. And I said to Seamus last week, and he kind of disagreed with me, but I'm going to say this again. I don't know what two of you think. I think the GAA culture is kind of turning into a soccer culture over the last few years.
A good bit, yeah.
And it's scary. Mm-hmm. It really is scary.
Yeah,
and
you know, Zales and all, yeah.
You'd be scared going to games. You'd be scared going into the Hill now.
Matthew,
you'd be, as Kevin mentioned there.
Yeah, brilliant points you're making, and two final points in that. Do you remember about 3 years ago we had an unbelievable All-Ireland final? The Cats were playing someone, and somebody stood up in the crowd from the Cats in the black and amber and shook the hand of the guy next to him, and it reverberated all over the world on Twitter about the respect that these two guys had for one another. And he just stood up and shook his hand. It was epic. Yeah. It was brilliant. And the second point I'll make to you is next Sunday morning, the Belfast to Dublin train will roll out of Central Station in Belfast, of Lanyon Place as they call it, and it'll go into Conley Station. And on there, you will see the same guys every year. People like Niall Murphy, a solicitor in Belfast, Mickey Kettle, Chris Hamill, my own brother Kieran. These guys travel every year on that same train. They're real big hurling enthusiasts. They love the game. And as much drink as they can have, the one thing that they'll do is they'll sit on that hill or in the Nally stand or in the Cusick, wherever their tickets for, and they'll respect every person that's on that train. They respect every person walking to the ground, and they respect every person in the ground. And that's one of the Sundays in their lives that they live for. And they will treat everybody with respect. Yeah. And unfortunately, Matthew has put this very articulately. We have this younger generation who come up who need a terrible clip in the ear, if truth be told.
Yeah.
And, I think the GAA needs to manage inside Croke Park a lot better because, these are iconic days. We are synonymous all over the world for respecting each other, and this is now being brought into question by the behaviour of a few.
Yeah, and I just thought there is security guards and everywhere littered around Croke Park. So, it's like the saying goes, lads. Where are you when we need you? 4 games left, Kevin. Can you quite believe it? 3 games left. Well, 3 games this weekend.
I don't know about Matthew. I don't know about our Ireland pundits, but I'm sort of getting to like this new format. It's quick, It's fast.
I
wasn't really a big advocate of it at the start, but I have to say, me, John, I criticise the GAA big time. I have done on here many a time about marketing and different things. I am liking this format. And it's great because every other week we're coming around with a new game.
Yeah.
Something's on the horizon. And it's great. It whets the appetite. We've 2 decent games this weekend. The likelihood is, and I'm not trying to be presumptuous, but we're going to get a beautiful game. The last weekend of July when the All-Ireland final happens. So, it's great for us enthusiasts, and I'm really liking how quick the year goes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, lads, to wrap up, very little games coming to the ticket trust of it now, lads, but not many value on offer this weekend. Hard to believe the weeks are flying by. Matthew Hurley, player to watch this weekend, bet of the weekend.
Player to watch, I'm going to go for Lee Gannon for Dublin. Think he could explode in the game on Saturday. And bet of the weekend, I said it before in the podcast, so I might say it again. You just came into my head. The Down and Meath game to have more than 6 goals in it.
Ooh. Look forward to that. Goal frenzy. Mr. McGurty.
I think Matthew should be maybe working for Paddy Power or someone. That's a cracking shout.
We'll just say next weekend, Boyle Sports, Matthew Hurley.
Well, other good people available to gamble responsibly and all that. I don't think there is a bet this weekend, if I'm honest with you. It's very, very difficult. Maybe David Goff to steal the limelight at Electric Picnic or something is the bet. Or Rand Tuberty to pay back that 150,000 EOs.
345,000, Kevin. Get it right.
Whatever it is. Tuberty to pay his taxes. Player to watch. There's a couple of players that have intrigued me the last couple of weeks. I just want to mention this. I have been harping on about Pascal. These two guys, I'll tell you that. And for me, he's in the running for Footballer of the Year. He's incredibly, incredibly good. But for me, when we look at this, the 4 teams that are stepping up in the All-Ireland semi-finals, if Derry are to do anything, Conor Glass has got to put his finger out of his arse in Croke Park. He didn't do a club final day. He's going to be such a massive player for them. If they have any hope at all of even being in this game, not even winning this game, Conor Glass has got to influence this game. When we talk about players in the past that have, Dar O'Shea when he was young came in the Kerry team, he started to bully other teams. He started to make his influence all over the game. Cavan Hughes, for as much as other people like Peter Cavan or Bran McGuigan or Bran Doer or Philly Jordan and all these guys were getting the acclaimants. Him in the middle of the park was I think he won two man of the match in All-Ireland finals. When he was inside Croke Park, that guy delivered. And midfield is such a big forum in this game. And I think that if Derry are to do anything, they've got to get a foothold early in the game. And I think that, he's got to really try and influence and bully this game.
Yeah, very interesting to see what happens this weekend, lads. Well, Kevin McCurdy, Matthew Hurley, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, the podcast brought to you by YourGrits.com. You go to podcasts to get 15% off on the website. Mr. McCurdy, thank you very much. Mr. Hurley, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, lads. Have a great week. Thank you very much.
Slán.